Well, hi, everyone. If you made it to this session today, I'd like to first start by saying congratulations. You've survived a very busy week at reInvent. And as you wrap up your time here in Las Vegas, we appreciate you joining us here today to learn more about how we're working with our customers to leverage AWS Marketplace to unlock innovation with our partner solutions. So I'm Carla Boggs. I'm a Senior Marketplace Customer Specialist. And joining me on stage is my colleague is Phil Sloan, and he leads our Marketplace International Expansion team. We're also delighted to welcome a very special guest, one of our very own AWS customers, Moaz Aslam, who is the Director of Strategic Sourcing at Riot Games, and we'll hear from a little bit later about his own personal innovation story using Marketplace. So let's talk with a scenario that may be familiar to some of you here in the room. So you have a priority that's being pushed from the top down, and it's absolutely critical that you get a solution to solve for a particular business outcome as soon as possible. So on one hand, you have people in the business, maybe developers saying, we need this solution right now. We needed this like yesterday. And then on the other hand, you have folks in finance and compliance saying, whoa, 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 slow down, pump the brakes, not without review, not without approval, not without these 8 forms, not without your left arm. And maybe somewhere in the middle, there's you. And Marketplace is really designed to help end this tug of war, giving both sides what they need. Speed to get the solutions you need faster, while also maintaining control. So over the next 45 minutes, we'd like to take you through exactly what Marketplace is and how we're enabling our customers to innovate faster in Marketplace. And then we'll talk about why our customers are using Marketplace. I mean, not just for convenience, but truly to accelerate innovation. Now, it's been a busy, exciting week here in reInvent, and so over the last few months, we've had some exciting announcements coming out of Marketplace. So we'd like to share a few of those with you today. And then, last but not least, we'll hear from Moaz on his story and what they're doing at Riot Games. So let me start by asking a question. So here in the room, how many of you, when your teams need new tools, wish that you could go through your procurement process a little bit faster? Yes, thank you. So you're not alone. So in my role as a Marketplace Customer Specialist, what I'm doing every day is having conversations with our customers, and I'm trying to understand a few things. First, I'm trying to understand, what's your procurement process look like today? What's working for you? Where are there points of friction? And from there, we work together to enable Marketplace features to solve for those points of friction. But in those conversations, I'm hearing a lot of common themes with procurement leaders, and what they're telling me is, one, procuring software is just simply taking too long. We can't get our hands on the tools fast enough to try to reach our goals for innovation. Another thing that I'm hearing is that it's really hard to see all of our total software spend. So with lines of business sometimes working with vendors directly, it's hard to have that visibility of what you're truly spending with your software vendors across your organization. Now, another thing they're telling me is that, once we have these tools and we're managing all of these vendors, it's really hard to manage that administrative overhead. And last, we're also hearing that compliance can become a bottleneck. Compliance wants to make sure that we're not introducing risk into the organization, but that can take too long. And sometimes we're seeing people go around procurement and introducing shadow IT and opening up opportunities for risk. So Marketplace exists to solve for some of those problems. Now, when we take a look at the cloud marketplace landscape today, we're seeing that more and more customers are looking to cloud marketplaces for their software procurement. In fact, cloud marketplaces are the fastest growing route to market right now. And we're looking at cloud marketplaces reaching over 163 billion by 2030. Now here at AWS, we're already seeing that momentum. So in 2025, we've already seen billions transact in our marketplace. And almost every single one of our top customers is leveraging Marketplace for their software procurement. So you might be wondering, what exactly is Marketplace? And I'm glad you asked. I'm happy to tell you that Marketplace, if you simply put, is a curated digital catalog, and it allows our customers to find, test, buy, and deploy software. But not just software, you can also buy data, you can buy services, and AI solutions, of course. So think of it a way for our customers to be the bridge between finding the tools they need and meeting with the partner solutions that we have available in Marketplace. Now, what makes Marketplace so powerful is how it simplifies the entire process. So starting with having a broad selection of products that our customers can choose from, and they're coming from sellers that you can trust because they're vetted by AWS. Now, when customers are going to buy, they know they can procure quickly. They can use things like flexible payments, or they can use custom contract terms. Now, once you decide, deployment is quick, easy, and secure, and you can deploy directly into your AWS environment. And finally, everything is under centralized governance. So your finance team, your procurement team, your security teams all have visibility into your spend, your usage, and control over compliance. So in short, Marketplace is helping our organizations move faster with less friction, less risk, and it's really striking that balance between speed and control. Now, you might be wondering, why are our customers choosing Marketplace? Why not stick with the way that they've always procured software within their organizations? And again, in my role, I have a front row seat to see our customers and how when we're going through that exercise of understanding where they're having friction, aligning them with Marketplace features, how they're getting that time back. And when they have that time back, they're able to use those tools to do that innovation, right? So you don't have to take my word for it. I know we've just, but luckily Forrester has recently conducted a study that actually quantifies the benefits that our customers are seeing when they're leveraging Marketplace. And this is what they found. So 70% time savings for our customers in product discovery. So instead of spending all of this time searching for the right solution on the internet, meeting with dozens of vendors, you can feel confident in the curated selection of vendors that have been vetted by AWS in our Marketplace catalog. They're also seeing 70% time savings due to streamlined procurement. Again, when we look at some of the traditional methods of the buyer journey, it can take weeks or months to go from when you've identified a solution to when you've done a POC, selected a vendor, gone through the legal process to finally deploy and use that tool. And Marketplace is helping expedite that process so that you get to tools and to innovation faster. And last but not least, they see a 30% faster time to market due to deployment efficiencies. So when our customers are saving time because there's not a huge amount of setup, there's not a huge amount of time spent provisioning, again, they can use that time to actually get to work with that tool, with those tools to do very cool things. But I'd like to point out that these numbers tell a bigger story. It's not just about how we're simplifying procurement. When customers have to deal with tedious procurement cycles for every single tool, they can't move fast. And so Marketplace is giving that time back to do just that. So this is exactly why we're seeing our customers leverage Marketplace from startups to Fortune 100s and using this as part of their innovation and procurement story. So I'd like to turn it over to Phil.
Hi everyone, it's a great opportunity to introduce myself. My name's Phil Sohn, I'm over from the UK, my first re:Invent, and absolutely loving it. So thanks for joining us for the final session. I've been incredibly lucky because I've been on the selling side of AWS Marketplace for about 8 years now. And what continues to be clear is our customers innovate faster and in more transformational ways when they not only just leverage the vast array of AWS services, but also our vibrant partner community and their market-leading solutions. So with that in mind, breadth of selection of products is incredibly important. And if you was to go onto AWS Marketplace right now, you'd find over 30,000 products across over 6,000 independent sellers, and that's 30,000 transactable products. And typically, they're going to be the market-leading solutions across over 70 different categories. So yes, the catalog is very software dominant, but I put a couple of Easter eggs in this slide in regards to channel partners and professional services, and we're going to come back to that later. What I found really interesting is how the selection has changed over time. and developed and matured in response to buyer demand. Since 2012 to today, to many tomorrows, the infrastructure category has been the cornerstone of customer adoption, which actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Because A, the proximity of these types of solutions to important use cases such as migrations or application development, and the close association to important products such as security, networking, storage, and data and analytics. But then secondly, these solutions are typically built on AWS. So they're really tightly integrated into AWS services, delivering great automation for our customers. So whether it's CrowdStrike delivering cloud-native security, with real-time threat detection, integrated with products such as Guard Duty, or Databricks unifying data and your AI into your AWS environment, and now even SaaS solutions from Claude for Enterprise. It's very clear that our customers innovate faster and with more confidence when they have access to these sorts of solutions. But over recent years, as more customers have kind of realized the benefits of Marketplace and operationalized them at scale, they've challenged us and the providers directly to increase the selection. So we've seen a real explosion of more categories, business applications, and even vertical solutions in areas such as healthcare, media, auto, energy, and industrial. Now, whereas these types of products are further away from the migration story or development story, these types of products are absolutely critical to the day-to-day running of customers' businesses, whether it's productivity tools or CRM solutions. So whether it's Infor with ERP systems, Genesis with AI-powered customer experience, or even GE Healthcare providing enterprise patient imaging solutions, the same procurement experience, the same benefits Carla mentioned can be realized here in a far wider set of use cases. So, Carla, that was a little snapshot. So what was that, about probably 100 solutions across about 14 of the 70 categories. How do customers even start discovering it?
Sure. Thanks, Phil. So, as you can see, with all of those listings and all that availability within Marketplace, you may be thinking, okay, so how do I get to the solution that I need faster? And that's where AWS Marketplace really shines. So knowing that we have the depth and breadth of all these solutions, we also want to enable our customers to be able to get to the tool they need quickly and easily. So, it's holiday season, you may be doing some holiday shopping, so your experience on our consumer Amazon.com site might be familiar to you if you're on Marketplace. But instead of searching for red socks or black socks or crew socks or ankle socks, you can search by category. You can search by how you want to buy a product. You can search by how you want to deploy that product. And what's really exciting is this week we have launched agent mode. So the fastest, easiest way to find solutions yet. You could use your own natural language and type in your questions into the search bar in agent mode to get some ideas of which solutions you should consider. And Phil will take us through that a little bit later today in the presentation. So what's important to understand is that Marketplace is going to help you cut through the noise so you can get to the tool you need faster. Now, once you've found the solution that you need, I think it's important for you to understand that you have options. And there are a few elements I'd like to walk you through in your Marketplace experience. So first, let's talk about flexible consumption models. And what does that mean, really? That means that you have several ways to buy. So if you're new to Marketplace and you want to test some things out, you have the ability to look at applications that have free trials. If you want to pay as you go and have your organization only pay for the software that you're using, that's an option too. Now, if you're fully committed and you want to take advantage of custom pricing that you've negotiated with a vendor, that's available on Marketplace as well. So what's important to understand is that no matter where you are in your AWS journey, it's not a big leap, it's not a big risk to start trying software within Marketplace. Next, let's talk about flexible build models. And again, this is what's giving you options and flexibility to choose software and how you want to deploy it. So whether that's something that you find in Marketplace that you can quickly click on and launch right away, or a fully managed service, again, you can take into consideration where you are on your AWS cloud journey today as well as tomorrow to find the right software solutions that are going to fit your current infrastructure. And last but certainly not least, let's talk about the enhanced security, governance, and control that you can find within Marketplace. It's really important to understand you're not giving up control to move faster. In addition to having a pre-approved catalog with vetted vendors, you can trust that there's visibility through custom dashboards that will allow you to see exactly what your organization is using in terms of software usage, software spend, and everything will stay secure and consistent. So Marketplace is all about removing the friction that you might see with traditional software procurement by still allowing you to do what you do best and level up.
So let's expand upon a couple of those points, particularly around flexibility. We appreciate that different roles, different personas want and need to use Marketplace in different ways. Similar to what I said about the infrastructure category, the self-service capability of Marketplace is absolutely paramount and foundational. Actually, about 80% of the transactions on Marketplace are self-service. Why? Because our builders, our developers, they just love the agility and love the accessibility of finding tools that they need, either using free trials or maybe just doing some low-level consumption, similar to how they'll consume something like Amazon EC2. It's a low commitment, it allows to innovate. For many tomorrows, the self-service will continue in that vein. However, procurement teams needed something different. They said, well, that's great for our builders, but sometimes, or very often, we need to make meaningful commitments. We need to buy one or multi-year contracts, and we can't do that with the public pricing that's on the catalogue. We need our negotiated terms, or to be able to negotiate terms with our providers, like we do outside of Marketplace. So in 2017, we released private offers, an absolute cornerstone feature now. And it allows your procurement teams to work with their software providers to either port in or negotiate terms and privately transact it through AWS Marketplace. But then customers asked us to go again. They said, oh, that's great, we love that, but we don't always buy directly from ISVs. We actually buy from our trusted channel partners and system integrators. So less than a year after releasing private offers, we released channel partner private offers. And we have great partners in the US and in EMEA, such as Computer Center, really using their trusted relationships with their customers to transact both private pricing, negotiated pricing, and negotiated terms. We spoke a little bit about working backwards from you of how you operate. But it's also important that we don't just work backwards from where you are in your journey, but where you are physically located. You shouldn't have to build your processes around us. You shouldn't have to move too far from your operating rhythm. So therefore, localizing your procurement experience is incredibly important. This year alone, we've launched tax automation in Japan and Switzerland. We've introduced marketplace operators in South Korea and India to help with more local tax invoicing. We've launched new languages on AWS Marketplace to help you discover products more seamlessly in native languages. And we've extended end-to-end currency supports now to 5 currencies, so there's no FX exposure at all. Procurement teams and line of business are really appreciating these innovations. You don't have to adapt to our world, we should be adapting to where you are in the world. So I love this.
All right, Phil. So we talked about earlier how it's been a busy week at reInvent, and we're excited that we've developed some features that are helping our customers move even faster. Can you take us through a few of these exciting launches that we've had this week?
Of course, yeah. So, for 13 years, we've been innovating on behalf of our customers. What's clear, and a great reason or a great benefit of doing this session at the back end of the week is that I get to talk about some of the stuff that's literally been launched, 48 hours ago, and even have a play with it. And it's clear that we have to keep moving. We need to keep up with you. With everything that's happening right now, I think it's fair we're in unparalleled times. So we need AWS Marketplace to keep ahead of you, to keep innovating for you. So there's 3 things that I just want to touch upon, but there is a relationship between the 3. Okay? First of all, customers were telling us and have continued to tell us that buying software can be complex and take a long time. Okay? Primarily because information is very fragmented and split across multiple different sources, and there's so many stakeholders involved. And this can take up months and months and months to get the right information, get the right proposals, and get the right consensus internally. So that's why we're absolutely thrilled that we've launched agent mode. Okay? So no longer do you need to go between all different tools and sites to pull together the information. Right now, in the center of AWS Marketplace, when you go there, you'll see a very simple engagement like chat. You can describe what you want. Yes, it might be a particular product, but very likely it's going to be an outcome. I'd like a zero trust solution, security solution. Okay? I'd like to start building an agent, but I want the correct MCP servers and guardrails. I want to modernize my contact center. You can even upload documents, technical requirement documents, business development, business requirement documents. And then what agent mode will do, it will then go through our 30,000 listings and start making recommendations. But it won't just be using our internal information, it'll be looking at external information, external reviews as well, compliance records. And my favorite feature that I really enjoyed playing with is the dynamic side-by-side comparisons. So you can start dynamically comparing different products, and if you want to interrogate it a bit more, the chat window in the bottom left, you can start asking more questions, start putting more use cases into it. Once you start settling on what you think you need or what the priorities are, you can then generate a proposal to then circulate to your stakeholders. And we're already seeing, through the betas and what's happened since the launch, this cutting so many cycles out of internal discussions. So really, really, really pleased with this. Now, when using agent mode, you're very likely to discover many of the products that I touched upon, but also a new category that we launched at New York Summit a few months ago, AI agents and tools. And this is in direct response to what our builders are building and moving to this more agentic world. So in this dedicated category, you'll find thousands of products from the likes of Asana, Automation Anywhere, IBM Perplexity, PwC, ServiceNow. Similar to what Carla said in terms of deployment options. They could be SaaS, they could be API accessible, they could be container-based, but also for anyone that's familiar with Amazon Bedrock Agent Core, where we're seeing customers moving agents from POC into production, it will have integration with AWS Marketplace and these solutions. What customers are already telling us they love about this is the flexibility. Because it's not just a list of agents. Not everybody's ready to buy an agent and put it in production and let it loose. The tools element of this is really important. So things like MCP servers, the guardrails, even like services from some of the system integrators to help pull this together is available. And I think that flexibility is really starting to now be shown in the buying behavior, because we're seeing, say, $10,000 self-services for some of the tools, but then equally multi-million-dollar private offers for agents, which is really starting to show what's happening in terms of the building and deployment with our customers. So we spoke there about the extended selection, and the dedication now around agents and tools. We spoke about reimagining how you discover and have a kind of a business outcome mindset in terms of when you're discovering products on Marketplace. And I'm really pleased we get to close with this launch this week, which is the fact that business leaders continue to tell us that they're moving away from specific product-led purchases to more line of business comprehensive solutions. And I touched upon those a moment ago. So it's important that we continue to respond to that. And what I love about what we've launched this week in the form of multi-product solutions is a fundamental change to how the transactions were working on AWS Marketplace. Before this week, it was per listing. So if you wanted a certain product, you would purchase it. If you wanted another product that might have been complementary but integrated it, it was a separate transaction. With multi-product solutions, it gives the ability to package together into one streamlined transaction. We see this being absolutely a game changer, really, particularly because it brings together so many cornerstone features. I touched earlier upon the important channel partners that are part of Marketplace. I touched upon channel partner private offers and private offers. I touched upon selection. I touched upon professional services. This has the great ability to pull it all together. That you can have a streamlined package to procure, one single contact, but with a clear business outcome in mind that brings together professional services, different tools, and different software. A very rich amount of products at launch. We only launched this a couple of days ago. And what I love, I think it shows, if you look at some of the system integrators in there particular, the maturity and the type of solutions that are going to be deployed out to our customers. So, really delighted that this is really going to help a number of our customers in isolation, but it brings together a number of those cornerstone features that I seeded through the discussion today. So, thank you very much for the time today. I'm now going to hand back to Carla so you can start to hear from one of our customers.
Thank you, Phil. So it's my pleasure to now bring to the stage one of our AWS customers who's here to tell us about how he at Riot Games is leveraging AWS Marketplace for their innovation within their software procurement. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Carla. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to share a little bit about how we procure software that powers our games at Riot Games. But first, a little bit about ourselves. And why speed, specifically procurement speed, is so important to our mission. Riot Games was founded in 2006 with the mission to make it better to be a player. In 2009, we launched League of Legends, which revolutionized online gameplay. Today, we're no longer a single game company. We have multiple games. We're supporting hundreds of millions of players around the world on a monthly basis, around multiple titles, including Valorant, including Teamfight Tactics, and we are also developing award-winning animation like Arcane. So when you operate at that scale, player first isn't just a motto. It's a genuine infrastructure challenge. To support millions of daily players around the world in 20+ languages, multiple titles, we absolutely need the best software tools possible and available to us, and fast. So now with that introduction, it kind of sets the stage for why speed in the procurement process is so important for us. And I'll kind of paint the picture of where we were, a few years back. Think about this cycle where teams would identify a need, they would submit a ticket to procurement, it would go to a supplier, sourcing and procurement would pick it up, start their process of vetting and identifying suppliers. InfoSec would get involved and start their process, which could take up to 4 to 6 weeks of verifying whether they had the proper certs. Legal would then get involved, and you would have contract negotiations, and finally, engineers would have access to their tools. By that point, when we finished the process, the business environment, the needs could have changed. And if they didn't, even worse, maybe the engineers found a workaround, and now you have a shadow IT problem. So in procurement, for our team specifically, we realized that our team was spending way too much time on supplier identification. Basically, we were hunting down vendors, we were checking if they were legitimate, and doing initial assessments, and it was basically tactical work, not really strategic, value add. What we needed to do was kind of flip that ratio, flip that coin or equation, right? We needed to focus more on verification, whether the tool was going to solve the pain point and the business need that we were trying to address. And on high value activities like negotiations, getting the best terms for Riot. We didn't want to play detective to see if this SaaS vendor was legitimate or not, right? And that's kind of where AWS Marketplace comes into play for us. For starters, by leveraging the marketplace, we can significantly shorten the identification of pre-vetted suppliers. Instead of scouring the internet, looking for vendors that might meet our requirements, you add a couple of filters in, and now with these exciting agent tools, I played around with them this morning. Looks pretty good, pretty sharp, guys. But just looking at the filters, a little bit of controls, I can identify the live ops vendor that can support and has SOC 2 certifications readily available, right? And that in itself can now unblock my engineering team to launch a trial, start identifying, have they identified the right requirements, maybe they need to augment those requirements, and by the time the trial is completed, they're ready to go to a broader search. And it just accelerates that procurement cycle by orders of magnitude. We're talking about talking about taking months, maybe over 100 days, down to under 30 days in some cases. So how did we actually make this work? For starters, we didn't mandate that you had to purchase through AWS Marketplace. Instead, we made AWS Marketplace the least path of resistance. For new software requests, we simply said, hey, is it available on AWS Marketplace? If it is, great, let's go purchase it there. That's the path we're going to go. For renewals, which had not been previously transacted on Marketplace, we took a pragmatic approach. We looked into it. We said, hey, can we purchase it on AWS Marketplace? Great. If we can do it, let's go do it. If we can't, let's just document why we can't do it, and then we would move on. The key really was showing value, showing the teams that they can find a tool and get to trial, get the POC off the mat, and start experiencing whether they were going down the right path. And once we were able to show that, the adoption kind of just took care of itself. And the other piece of it is we didn't just dip our toe in the swimming pool of AWS Marketplace. We really like my kids like to do, we cannonballed in, right? Once we saw the value, in 1 year, I think we had more than 900% increase in adoption of spend going through AWS Marketplace, which is just incredible, right? And so just looking at the numbers a little bit, in 2021, we started our journey. We had just a small proportion of our software spend going through the marketplace. We had our all-in year, our aha moment in 2022. And then, even then, we did triple-digit growth in 2023. And then we started to get kind of like the laggards, the last piece of software that isn't going through the marketplace. We had another 20% growth in 2024. So this really isn't just adoption. It's really transformational in terms of how Riot is procuring and acquiring third-party software. So let's just double-click a little bit on the value piece for all of us. The primary benefit for my team, for sourcing and procurement specifically, has been the ability to just shift the focus. Suppliers in the marketplace are pre-vetted. We aren't wasting cycles like, hey, is this vendor real? Do they have the certs? Instead, we're spending our time on verification. Can this tool meet the need that we've identified, or do we need to shift gears really fast, right? We're validating whether the business case is sound, the assumptions that we had identified to go to market in the first place. We're going into strategic negotiations and making sure that we're getting the best terms for Riot. This is the value for Riot. However, I want to kind of point out, for smaller stage companies, I think there actually might be a bigger win. So see, Riot is a multinational company, and being so, inherently, we have a big kind of like target on our back, right? And we have to invest in multiple tools in order to vet suppliers and make sure that our data is protected. For smaller companies, or early stage companies rather, the capital that you would normally invest towards TPRM tools, my thought is that you can leverage AWS Marketplace for these pre-vetted suppliers and reallocate that capital towards chasing the market opportunity that you're chasing. And then once you get to the stage of a company that requires more investment in multiple tools like we are, where vendor insights is a tool in our toolkit, once you get there, then you can invest in the TPRM platforms in addition to leveraging vendor insights. So I think there's actually a bigger win for early stage companies. Looking ahead for us, we're now eyeing the next phase of expansion for our use of AWS Marketplace. The agents looks very exciting. For the next 12 months, we're targeting 90% of our spend. That's our target in terms of all of our software spend going through the marketplace. The shift, the other piece is, instead of just SaaS software, we're looking at now machine learning models. We're going to be purchasing containerized images as well. So the technical assets that we'll be leveraging AWS Marketplace for is just going to expand now based on the delivery models available to us. And then finally, at Riot, we believe that optimizing the operational processes like procurement really that's what enables us to do the exciting things, which is like bringing the next exciting game, to our players. So, thank you. Carla.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Maz, for sharing your journey. Very interesting to see how you're using our marketplace at Riot Games. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you've learned something new about AWS Marketplace you didn't know before. Now, as we close out this time in Las Vegas and we move forward, we encourage you to keep up the momentum. So I have a couple of homework assignments for you. So first, this QR code right here on the screen will take you directly to the AWS Marketplace homepage. And now when you go to the homepage, you'll be able to see exactly what we were just walking through today. The code is right at the top. Go check it out. Ask it some questions, see what solutions it delivers, but it's a pretty cool tool. Also, I want to remind everyone in the audience that every single customer at AWS has access to someone in my role who is a marketplace customer specialist who can do the same thing for you, to work with you to understand where you are in your procurement journey and help you take advantage of the tools that are available to you in marketplace today. Now, I understand that we also may have some of our partners in the audience today. I encourage you to help your customers connect with people in my role as well. So please do reach out to your account team and see how they can connect you with your marketplace specialist. So thank you very much for joining. Phil, Maz, and I will be hanging out on the side of the stage for the end of the session. Feel free to come up and ask any questions that we might not have addressed in our session today. And we appreciate you joining us, and we hope that maybe one of you will join us on stage next year at reInvent to tell your story of how you were able to innovate using AWS Marketplace. Thanks for your time.